Welcome to the Cheer Athlete. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to talk more about ankle sprains and how do you know when it's time to recover, or how do you know when it's time to get back on the field and that you are recovered? This is a great question because I think a lot of people think an ankle sprain is nothing. It will get better on its own and you can get back pretty quickly. And a lot of times that's true. A grade one ankle sprain, you have some pain, it's a little sore, maybe a little bit of swelling, not too bad, and you can get better pretty quickly and not need any treatment or bracing or anything. But if it's a little bit bigger of a sprain, you're going to have a little bit more swelling and more pain. And I don't think that just getting rid of your pain will help you, it will tell you that you're healed. I just Googled actually, how do you tell if an ankle sprain is healed? And I think a lot of times this is what most everybody thinks. I don't have pain, my motion is back, and I've been able to get some strength back, and I can, do certain things with it. Like, I can point my toes and I can flex my foot. This is a good indicator that things are healing and getting better. And it certainly is something that we want to happen. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you're fully healed. See, ligaments, they don't actually come back together at the same full strength. They do, when they get stretched, which is what a sprain is, it gets stretched, and degree of stretch is what indicates how bad the sprain is. But so when a ligament gets stretched, it will heal. We'll get some scar tissue in there, but it's not going to get the same contractile properties. In which case, you need actually more strength than you had before to help prevent the ankle from moving in ways that the ligaments usually tell you not to move in, like rolling it out to the side. So the most common ankle sprain is a lateral ankle sprain and a low, kind of just below the outside part of your ankle, the fibula. And just in front of that is the anterior talocrural fibular ligament. And that's probably the most common ligament. You can come up a little bit higher and get a high ankle sprain, or you can get the calcaneal ligament sprain, or you could do a deltoid ligament, which is the inside. It all depends on how you roll and where your ankle is. If it's a bad sprain, you could sprain multiple ligaments, and that means a longer recovery. Why am I so intent on talking about ankle sprains? Because I think I've done this a couple of weeks in a row now. Um, I have a client right now who is recovering from an ankle sprain, and she's doing really well. Her range of motion is back, uh, and she can walk on her toes for a short distance, not a full 10 feet, and she can walk on her heels without pain, which she couldn't do when I first started seeing her. She has started running. We in the clinic have just started jumping. At first, she had pain. Now she doesn't. That's awesome. And all of this is progressing. And she has just gone back to the physician, and the physician gave her full clearance to go back to working out or to go back into playing her sport. I gave her clearance to do half of what her sport is because she hasn't fully done the work to test the ankle. I think this is really important. I think you have to, in order to determine if your ankle is fully healed, which it doesn't actually fully heal, it comes together, your pain gets less, your mobility gets back, you get stronger, you're able to have good balance and correct self. But in order to be fully healed and ready to go and take on the activity like running and cutting and jumping and twisting, like all of that, you need to be able to test those situations. And if you do that too soon when you're having pain, you end up re-irritating and recreating more swelling, which inhibits the muscles and decreases the strength around the ankle joint. So it's important to ramp up slow. It's important to first get rid of the swelling, then get the range of motion back, which kind of go hand in hand. Build up the strength in a non-weight bearing motion. So can you move your ankle? So we say this is our ankle. Our ankle needs to go up and down. This is dorsiflexion and plantar flexion of an ankle. Obviously, it's not my ankle. If you're watching this on YouTube or on the video, it's my hand. Also needs to go out and in. And it needs to be able to tip to the side and tip to the other side. So roll out and roll in. Usually on an acute ankle sprain or even on a chronic ankle sprain that hasn't regained full mobility, that out and in still creates some pain. When you roll out to the outside of your ankle, if it's a lateral ankle sprain and that anterior talofibular ligament just below that ankle bone on the outside, that creates a stretch on that. It's okay as long as it's not intense. And we got to go to that comfortable stretch. It's really important as you're doing your mobility work. It's actually good. Our ankle is supposed to go in that direction. So we need it to. And we want to get past the point of stretch where it just feels comfortable. But we don't want to go too far so that it puts more stress on that ligament. So you have to take your exercises slowly. You have to move slowly through it and feel what does it feel like? Is it an intense stretch or is it just a mild stretch that will get better, that's actually helping the situation and creating good mobility? Conversely, the ankle has to roll in. A lot of times with a lateral ankle sprain, this is going to create some pinching and we call impingement. And that's a little bit more sticky. That means it's not that talus isn't rocking enough inside the talocrural joint and that between the two ankles. And it might need to glide backwards a little bit into the back of the ankle so that it's not jammed forward. And this might need some mobility work, might need some hands-on manual work to help. You can do some on your own by doing some rocking in and out in different angle positions of that dorsiflexion, or by working with some wedges and creating that normal mobility and getting some weight shifting. So if someone, I think that's usually acute. I think the hard part comes when you are feeling good, you're ready. You don't have pain on a regular daily basis. You might have, you feel like you've been able to run, you've been doing things straight on. So you're like, I'm ready to go. And you go see this physician and he looks at you on the table and pushes your ankle and says, and then has you push into his hand. And that's your strength test and that's your range of motion test. And he looks at your ankle and he's like, looks pretty good. You're good to go. But he hasn't actually tested you. He hasn't had you hop in the clinic. He hasn't had you do a single leg balance test. Not just a balance, but like, yes, standing on one leg, can you do that? And can you maintain your pelvis level, your level pelvis? Can you squat on one leg? Can you stand down and sit up? Can you and what does your knee do in that process? And does it create pain? The pain isn't necessarily always an indicator, right? You might have a little discomfort, but it's manageable and you can do it with good control. Or it could be that it's putting more strain on it. So it all depends. But if you can't do it with good control, then you definitely are not ready to go back. And that's also just static, right? We're looking at a squat position in one position. But how about when you're running? Can you run? Can you cut? And can you do that quickly? If you're in cheerleading, can you pivot to get to your next position? Can you land a tumble pass, whether it's standing or running, and really land with your knees bent without having that jamming sensation? It's up to you if that pain is manageable or not. But are you fully healed? Probably not. And so if you're going to go and put in contact and you're going to be doing multiple tumble passes and stunting, and if you're a flyer and you have just that little bit of instability in the ankle and your bases are trying to control you, but you can't control it because of all kinds of other reasons of why that ankle is not stable, you set yourself up for risk of injury. So part of my job as a mean physical therapist is to hold you back. You might be clear to a doctor because your range of motion on the table is solid. But if you can't run, cut, jump, land with good form and good control over a period of time. Now, that period of time doesn't have to be months. It might be months, but it could be a week. It could be 2 weeks. It's gradually ramping things up and testing it. You probably aren't going to, if you sprained your ankle and you have hip weakness that is associated with that, whether the hip was weak and you rolled your ankle, or your ankle is weak and your hip is now needing to provide more stability because you don't have that ligament and ankle stability, and hip is bigger, so it gives you more stability. Whatever the cause, if you don't have that control and then you get back too soon, you're going to risk a bigger injury. And it's my job to let you know this is a potential risk of further injury. And it might hold you out for longer. So yeah, the doctor could say, yep, go for it, go full in. And you're like, okay, I'm in, coach. I can be in competition this weekend and I can go full out, or I can be at practice and go full out. And you go and you do it. And then guess what? It just wobbles a little bit enough, just outside of its range because it doesn't have that full strength yet. and you're starting off at square one. And then you're out for another 6 weeks. Maybe you're in a boot, maybe you're not. We time could tell. It depends. Even with a brace, it doesn't mean that you're going to be 100% solid. And even with tape, which can immobilize the ankle. But then if you're immobilizing one area, so you immobilize your ankle, your knee has to move more. So guess what? Then you're at risk for more of an ACL injury. And if your knee isn't stable enough and your hip isn't stable enough, then you might be at further risk for back injury. Like everything is connected. We need to make sure that everything moves well. And sometimes I have to be the mean person and tell you, no, you're not ready to go full out. Yes, you can get in and practice. Coaches, if you're listening to this, be okay with your athletes coming back at 50%. Be okay with them starting to mark stuff. Maybe they have to mark their tumbling, or maybe they do a straight jump before they're tumbling, if they're supposed to be doing a handspring tuck, maybe they do their hamstring and set. Be okay with that as there's even through almost the last day, because if they're getting their timing down and they've had their skill before, they're going to be ready to go. If they didn't have their skill, it's a whole different story. Then, don't put that skill in there. But if they can come back at 50%, so if a flyer's back at 50% and maybe she's ready to start working libs, but not ready to start pulling a stretch, or maybe she's not ready to twist, or maybe she's not ready to do full ups. Maybe she can just do the straight rides, and that's going to work on that timing factor. And it's going to start to build her strength in a functional situation, which we can't do in a physical therapy clinic. So it's important that you allow them to come back at that part. And it's actually it's really important, and it's helpful for them, and it will help them get better in the long run if they can come back gradual. How long do they need to be at 50%? It depends. It depends on how they do. It depends on how, can they get some reps in? Uh, in pitching, they have they don't allow kids well, they're not supposed to allow kids to pitch over a certain pitch count. We should have that same thing. We should have the number of reps of handsprings and stunts. Like there's a limit that we need to cut them off. And at the beginning, we can ramp that up. I don't have that number. I don't know what that is. Maybe we can work on this together if you're a coach who's interested in looking at rep counts. I'll help you with whatever stats I can help you with. But the important part is like let your athletes come back part-time, let them come back gradual, and they'll progress faster. Also, coaches, please communicate with your physical therapist, with the athlete's physical therapist. That the athlete has to give permission to the therapist to be able to talk with you. And the athletic training as well. And that should be another triad. If you have an injured athlete, the physical therapist, the athletic trainer, and the coach should all be communicating with each other. And they haven't seen either one of them, they should be communicating with the doctor. But generally, the physical therapist is the one who's getting them better and rehabbing and doing the work in a hands-on clinic and like mobilizing and all that stuff to then be cleared in athletic training. And the athletic trainer should be looking at them like, can they do certain tests to be able to get back in and do their sport? And all three of us should be talking together to make sure that the athlete is ready to go. Most of the time, I don't get calls from coaches to say, hey, where are they at? Like like I tell an athlete you can go 50%, and the athlete goes to their coach and sometimes tells you they can be 50%, and sometimes tells you, I'm good, I can go. But I don't have that communication with a coach, and that for me would be really helpful, because then I can say, what are you working on? Okay, you're working, you're doing full outs now, or you're just doing, mobility work and building your routine and putting pieces together. Okay, maybe they can do double leg stunts and they can work some transitional stuff there, but maybe they can't do pop downs. It all depends on where you're at. And it might be a matter of, oh, yeah, they can do this, but let them only do it 2 or 3 times and really watch how they're landing. Cue them as they're loading in and not let their knees come in. Cue them to make sure they're getting their feet in the right position. There's a lot of things that you and I, as coach to physical therapist or strength coach, we can work together to make this better. And if you have an athlete that's coming back and you're not sure if they're ready to go, please reach out to me, and I'm happy to talk with you and give you some guidance as well. This is really important. I think for any sport, I think it's really important that we look at how our athletes are moving before we give them full on clearance to go. And if you're a parent listening to this, same thing. Talk with your physical therapist, talk with a coach. The four of you. So this time we're not a triangle, we're a square. The parent, the coach, the cheerleader, and your physical therapist, athletic trainer, and physician. All five of us, star, should be involved in the conversation of when is this athlete ready to go. I'm on the end all be all. Ultimately, it's your athlete's body. Ultimately, you and the parent and the athlete make the ultimate decision. Like, I'm ready to go. I want to go, and I'm okay with a potential risk of further injury. But I have to do my due diligence and make an informed decision and help you make an informed decision that I don't think you're strong enough and you should sit out for a little while longer until you can do X, Y, and Z, not just on the table, because that doesn't tell you what you're going to do up in the air. You need to be able to move in multiple planes of motion and be able to control it. And if you can't, then I need to do my work to make sure that you can get there and do that. This goes for any injury, but ankle sprains, I think, are one of those ones that we think are super quick to get back. And that because they have no pain means that they can stand on one leg and they have the ability to dorsiflex fully, that means they're fully healed. It's it's a couple signs that things are going in the right direction. But if they don't have that control, are they fully healed? Does fully healed mean that they're ready to go? Maybe you can be fully healed, but you still need to do the work to get stronger and better so that you don't re-roll it, number one, and you don't set yourself up for further injury, number two. And three, you're not setting somebody else up for a bigger injury because you tweak it when you're not fully ready to be there. It's something to think about. I encourage conversation. I encourage you to contact the physical therapist who's working with your athlete. And if you're not getting answers, please reach out to me. I can tell you what I would do on a global thing. I'm not evaluating your clients unless they're coming to me. Um, and but I'm more than willing to talk you through like what would it look like and what mobility and motions need to happen. And so I talk mobility and motions, but like, can they go can they actually jump and like pop down? And can they go in 2 feet? Can they go in 1 foot? Can they switch directions? And if they can do that, and they can do that with a little bit of wobble and test, I'm not looking for perfection. I'm looking for solid. And some of that means perfection, but are they solid enough? And can they do that? So have that conversation and reach out. And we all want the best for our athletes. We just got to keep doing our due diligence to make sure that happens. If you have any questions, please reach out. I am holding a master class. Have yet to set the date. As soon as I do, I will post that below. And the master class is actually going to be a series. I'm going to do a series of lectures and time for Q&A. There will be recordings, and when you sign up and buy it, it's going to be $100, $99. It won't be $100, but there will be a charge to it because it's going to be multiple weeks, and because I want you to show up and to at least learn from the replay or to be able to ask questions. And I do plan on doing a webinar beforehand. And if you sign up for the webinar, then you get a discount on the class as well. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be on the foot and the ankle. We'll dive into some more on anatomy, which is, I find, very exciting, but not everybody does. But I think it's really important. If you know your anatomy and you know why I talk about the hip when I talk about the foot and what the movements are that are needed in that, it's more understandable. The more you learn, if you've been watching my Proverbs on YouTube and how that relates to cheerleading, the more we learn about our bodies, the better our bodies are going to be and the better we're going to be. So the more you learn about your anatomy and what normal movement is and what connects to what, the more you'll be able to feel it in your body and do that and be able to teach it to your athletes as well. So we're going to talk anatomy, we're going to talk movement, we're going to talk going to have exercises each week. We'll talk ankle sprains more. We'll talk about Seaver's disease. We will talk about fractures. I have somebody who's a gymnast that had a navicular fracture and had to have part of the bone shaved off, and that's pretty common. And it's also pretty common to have more pain once you get back in it, because that's fixing the problem, or fixing the symptom is not necessarily fixing the problem. So we'll dive into fractures, and maybe a little bit about bunions, because although hopefully our athletes are not having bunions at their age, but a lot of the weaknesses that occur up the chain can lead to bunions. And maybe you as a coach or a parent have some sign of your big toe going out and creating a bunion. And so there's exercises that you can do and mobility work you can do to help reduce that risk, to create better mobility in your foot and your hip and all the way up the chain. So if you're interested, please let me know. Keep your eyes out for that. And I will have links in the show notes here. And they'll be on ltthechairpt.com and on social media as well. So if you need to, reach out to me on social media, on Instagram at the Chair PT, or on Facebook, it's the Chair PT with LT the PT. And you can email me, Laura@movebetterllc.com. Make it a great week. Thanks for joining me and for listening. And please, if this resonates with you, or if you know somebody that needs to hear about timing and when it's okay to return after a sport, please share this with them. The more people we reach about injury prevention, the better the world's going to be. And the less injuries, the faster we're going to be in recovering, because we're going to check in with them sooner and do the work to prevent them in the long run. Have a great week. Don't forget, when in doubt, breathe it out. Take life one step at a time. You can do anything that you put your mind to. And like my friend Drew Keller has said, you're responsible for your own vibes. Go get the day.